I'm not a PowerPoint guy myself, but, not everyone has my amazing art skills, I guess. Quiet, you. You sat with your face. You did. Like, I'm not just saying that. You definitely, I could see it in your eyes that you're about to criticize me. But I'm very sensitive. That's the whole point. Wow. Audrey, am I blocking? I'm sorry. I meant no disrespect. I'm having weird sync issues with OneNote this year that I've never had before. It's frustrating me, but that's okay. Okay, so the circulatory system. What is your circulatory system? What's it do? So the circulatory system Okay, the circulatory system moves stuff. What does it mean to circulate? It's circulate around the room or something like that.
No,
I don't right now, but yeah, catch me in a bit.
Like 5, 10?
10.
10.
I'll get a little up. So, yeah, we move stuff around the body. If you circulate around the room, it means that you move around the room, right? But what word is kind of built into that? Circle. And of course, a circle, if you move around it, where do you end up? Back where you started. So that actually gives us a sense of how we move stuff around our body. Specifically, things are carried in what? Carried in what's inside the veins? Blood vessels are the veins. Blood. Yeah, things are carried in the blood. That's what your blood is for. Your blood carries stuff. Things are carried in the blood through a series of tubes, which we call vessels. But they're just tubes. They're like little pipes. So today, we're going to focus on the most important part of the circuit. I mean, they're all equally important, I guess, because it doesn't work if you take any one of the parts out. But the most fundamental part about the circulatory system is the heart's important because it moves the blood around. And the blood vessels are important because they contain the blood, so it doesn't just spill all over the place. But in the end, the thing doing the actual doing is the blood. So today we're going to look at blood. And I used to run a science club, and in my science club, one of the labs I would do every year is I would have my friend Chris, who is a nurse, come, and he would draw my blood. We'd actually look at it. We'd look at blood sort of in situ. We'd see what goes into taking it out. Like, actually, has anyone given blood before or had blood drawn for something? Yeah, so, you load it, put a little needle in, right? It's not a fun thing, right? I don't love it. It freaks me out. I don't mind the pain. I'm always just weirded out by the idea of like, oh, that's inside my vein. That's weird. It's weird, right? Yeah. Yeah, they gotta find the spot. I gave blood in Haiti, and the needle this lady used was like roughly the size of those culverts that run like under driveways in the country. The needle, I swear to God, it was so big. I was like, and my wife thought it was funny that I was freaking out, so she filmed me. So there's this great footage of this like Haitian woman being like asking me, "D'accord?" like in French, like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, fine." Meanwhile, I'm like, ah! It was a big needle. I was a big baby about it. But your blood, it's inside you. It's supposed to be inside you. If at any point it's coming outside of you, it's a potential cause for concern, right? In small volumes, we're not too worried. In big volumes, we get concerned. What is it? And I think we'll start by saying, what's it do? What does your blood do? And the first thing we're going to say it does is it transports stuff, right? We already said that above. A big important feature of your blood is that it is for transportation. It moves stuff and things. What's some of the stuff and things it moves? Oxygen. What else does it move? Interestingly, we'll get to that. I'm not going to say it moves iron. I'm going to say it contains iron, and we'll talk about why in just a few short minutes. Nutrients, vitamins, or if you're English, vitamins. What else? Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to say, generally speaking, biological molecules, because that could be proteins, but that could be other stuff too. It moves all kinds of biological molecules around, and we'll talk about that. Another important thing, waste, right? Like, we don't think about it because, of course, our waste ends up either in feces or in our urine, but a lot of the waste to end up in your urine first has to travel through your blood. And it's nephrotic filtration, like it's glomerular filtration in the kidneys, which you'll learn about if you take grade 12 bio, that gets that waste into your urine, but starts out in your blood. But of course, there's even a bigger thing that gets carried waste-wise in your blood all the time. CO2, right? Which is a waste product that your cells make. So your blood is always transporting things. But what else does your blood do? It's really important. Let's say that you get sick and you have an infection, a bacterial infection. Your body wants to fight it. How does it fight it? White blood cells. Very good. So we keep the tools for our defense in the blood. Very good. So we have cells designed to fight infection. And we have cells designed to heal wounds. My wife is teaching a healthcare class at West Niagara right now. She's in school to be a teacher. She's at Teachers College. We did a trade-off the other day. She wrote my grade 11, the test that you guys just wrote to see how she'd do on it out of the blue. And I wrote her healthcare test to see how I'd do on it out of the blue. It had a whole section on all the different types of infection fighting cells. And I'm ashamed to say I got them pretty mixed up. The third one's interesting, but you know this. You know this because what happens on a real cold day? What part of your body gets cold? What part doesn't? Your hands will get real cold. What part doesn't get real cold? Might feel like it, but it doesn't. Your chest, your organs, your brain, right? And you can see this because if you come in from the cold, all the places that your body is trying to heat up while you're out in the cold have gotten all red, right? Like your face will get all red and like your skin. Meanwhile, your hands actually won't. They'll get kind of almost bluish, right? As if they're blood deprived. And then as you come in and your body starts to warm up again, then your hands will start to get red, right? Because your body actually will move blood around to move heat around to maintain temperature. Does that make sense? Your muscles get hot as they work, and your blood flows around and through them, and they carry that heat throughout the body, and we can control where that blood goes. And in doing so, we can control where things get hot and where they get cold. And if we don't let blood get near the surface of our body, then that heat has trouble radiating away, and it'll keep us warm. If, on the other hand, it's really hot out, then we let the blood flow out to the extremities so that it can get blown away by the air and it can cool you down. Does that make sense? So we actually use blood for temperature regulation. The cells of the body produce heat. Blood flow controls where heat goes. It's actually extremely important. Different animals have different ways of regulating heat. Where do we let blood flow? How do we get rid of excess heat? What does our body do? We sweat. And what's the point of that? But why? What happens? Yeah, why would that cool you down? That doesn't cool you down. Do you know what cools you down? It evaporating. Because for water to evaporate, it has to absorb a bunch of heat. And where's it going to absorb that heat from? Your body. And that carries it off with it. So if you put water on the outside of your body and let it evaporate off, it cools you down. Try this. Put yourself in front of a fan, you'll feel a little bit cool because your body's always producing. Because keep in mind, a fan is blowing air at you that is exactly the same temperature as the air that's already on you. Does that make sense? So the air coming off a fan isn't actually cool. In fact, it's probably a little bit warmer because the motor on the fan gets warm. And friction makes things warm. The reason it feels cool is that you have some moisture on the surface of your skin, and the air that blows across it blows that moisture off with it, evaporates it, and that has to absorb heat, and it absorbs it from your body. And you can try this, because if you go in front of the exact same fan and put a little bit of moisture, more moisture on your skin, you'll cool down even faster. If you put something that evaporates even easier, like say alcohol, like if you took some rubbing alcohol and put that on your hand and put that in front of a fan, you'll feel downright cold, because it'll evaporate really quickly. And you'll feel that as cool because it absorbs heat. So our body puts our blood flow up near the skin, sweats, and lets that cool down. How do dogs lose heat? They don't sweat. They have massive amounts of blood flow to their tongue, and they open their mouth and wag it around, and the moisture on it evaporates, and that's how they cool down. You know, toucans do it. They put massive amounts of blood flow through their beaks. They dip their beaks in water, and they let it evaporate, and that's how they cool down. Right? So different animals have different techniques, but it's all the same idea, which is we put the blood in a place that's cool to let it cool down. And on the other hand, if it's really cold out, what we do is we keep the blood away from the surface, we let the surface get cold, and we keep the blood where we really need to keep warm. Does that make sense? Cool. What's blood? I mean, here's the deal. It depends. Like, in this lesson, I'd say it's a really logical question because we're talking about blood and it's a science class. Now, I will say, if you got on the bus tonight and like, you know, you're just going like downtown and like some guy in track pants with like, you know, with a open bottle of Sunny Delight is like, what's blood? Then I'd be like, I'm going to change seats. So like every question depends on context, right? If you're on a first date and you're like, so what do you do for work? And they're like, oh, you know, I don't know, I work at Arby's. And then they're like, great. And then it's their turn for a question like, what's blood? You'd be like, okay, I actually just forgot I have to go see my friend. Sorry, it's been really nice meeting you, Gary from Arby's. Do you know what I mean? So like everything's context dependent. Anyway, what is blood? Ready? I got this. True or false? Okay. What? How is that false? Is blood red?
No, I'm talking about, you know that whole thing people would ask me, your kids, is it actually red?
It's actually red. Your blood does, guys listen, deoxygenated blood is not blue. Now, here's what is true. It's bluer. No, listen, it's bluer. It actually does change color. In fact, that's how we can tell. Have you ever had the little clamp on your finger and they tell you what your blood oxygen level is? If you haven't, we've got one here. We'll use it later on. It actually does, your blood does change color when it gets oxygen, but we're talking like a few shades. Do you know what I mean? Like a little shift, not like it goes from blue to red. Does that make sense? But it does change color. It absolutely does. But no matter what, it's always red. So it's a red suspension. Back to grade 9 science. What's a suspension? It's a liquid with solids not dissolved, but suspended in it. And suspended just means like held inside of it, floating around. Think like coffee is a suspension. You can tell that because you can't see through it, right? It looks all solid. Whereas like tea, tea is a bit of a suspension too, but tea is closer to being a solution. You know how it changes color, but you can see through it? You know, coffee, you really can't. That's because it's got solids suspended right inside of it. It's carrying solids. So what is the liquid portion of blood? What do we call it? Does anyone know? Plasma is correct. Well done. And plasma by volume or by weight makes up anywhere from about 50 to 55% of the blood. And this is the liquid component. And then the solid component, I mean, there's a few other things, but generally the solids in blood are cells. And they make up about 45 to 50%, give or take. Okay, so let's talk plasma. What's plasma? It's an aqueous solution. What's aqueous mean? How's our Latin? Aqua. You know what aqua means? Water. So aqueous solution just means water-based. It is a water-based solution. If you all spoke Latin, none of these things would sound fancy. That literally means watery solution, right? It's water-based solution. Most nutrients are just dissolved here. Most of the nutrients in your blood are just dissolved in the plasma. Most nutrients, hormones, minerals, and waste are just dissolved here. I wish I'd left a space there. If you also wish you'd left a space there, you should probably just like highlight that. Just like slide it down a line like that. And doesn't that look nicer now? If only. Every year I apply for a grant to get a class set of like computers like this, and every year Microsoft says no. But one of these years, they're going to get real desperate and give me money. The cells of blood are suspended in the plasma, and that lets them flow. Okay, so we got our plasma. That's the liquid. You've experienced this. Have you ever had a situation where you have a kind of a scrape that isn't bad enough that's really like bleeding red blood, but you see like yellowy kind of liquid coming out of it? Yeah, that's a case where you've scraped the blood vessels, scraped the skin enough that the blood itself, the cells of the blood can't get out, but the plasma can. So that kind of clear liquid that has, if enough of it builds up, you'll see the plasma always has sort of a slight yellow hue to it. It's not quite perfectly white. So we've got the plasma, but then we've got the cells. And these are called blood cells. And another way to say blood cells, if we spoke Latin, which again makes all this easier, does anyone know the Latin root for blood? We talked about last unit really briefly when we talked about a disease that it crassly translates to blood-loving. Yeah, so philia is the love part, right? Phile means to love or like something. So heme. So heme is the Latin root for blood. You'll sometimes the English still spell it with an A before the E. We do not. But these are called hemocytes, which makes sense because cyte means cells. Cytoplasm is the cell liquid. Again, if you spoke Latin, none of these words are scary. So cyte is cell in Latin. And heme refers to blood, which you'll see again in traditional spelling with the A. And so the English still spell hemoglobin, H-A-E-M-O-G-L-O-B-I-N, and it seems like it should say hemoglobin, but it doesn't. It says hemoglobin. How many types of blood cells do we have? Don't go to one, okay? Like, we don't need to go there. He's like, wait a minute, is it 3? Is it 2, or is it, wait, Mr. Orlando, wait.
It's a small one, isn't it?
Whoa. Anyway. No, the answer is depending on how you want to answer, anywhere from hundreds, but we put them into 3 basic categories. 3 basic categories. And the first, and by far the most abundant, is what gives blood its color, and we call these, that's right, erythrocytes. Again, if you're Latin, you would not find this stressful because eryth refers to red, And cytes means cell. So these are red cells, but it's got a fancy name. Erythrocytes as a name is its correct name. More often than not, you'll just see the term red blood cells, and that has become just as official. So these can be used interchangeably. But if you're feeling like a fancy pants on any given day, you can refer to them as erythrocytes. And the first thing to know is these are the most common blood cells by far. By the way, what's another word for blood cell? The most common? Yeah, hemocytes. These are the most common hemocytes by far. Tomorrow we're going to look under the microscope at some blood smears, and what you're going to see overwhelmingly is red blood cells. Does that make sense? Overwhelmingly, you're going to find red blood cells. They have a famous shape. They're kind of donut-shaped. Now, to be clear, not the kind of donuts that have a hole in the middle. Right? These do not have a hole in the middle. But rather, the powdered donuts. You ever see how they kind of go a little concave in the middle? Do you know what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. How they always kind of cave in the middle a bit. A donut that's like, this is what these are like. If you look at them from the top, what you're going to see is that they kind of look like this, where it looks like there's this like dark red section to it. I really miss my pencil. The old version of OneNote had a pencil, and like you could shade in, and boy, do I miss that pencil. Well, I'm trying to, and that's not. I switched back to that one for math. But so you're always left looking with this section in the middle that at first glance can almost look like it's a hole in it, but isn't a hole in it. There's still fluid there, and that's because if you look at it from the side, so this would be looking at it from the quote-unquote top, and then if we looked at it from the quote-unquote side, what you'd see is that they look kind of like this. They sort of go like that. That was terrible. That was literally the worst thing ever. Yeah. What's that? I think it was always like that, and that's exactly it. So yeah, I'm very interested in what you think. And that's why we appreciate Angela. Her commitment to accuracy and veracity and, of course, kindness. What do your red blood cells do? What's their primary function? Yeah, but they carry one specific thing. They have one job. Oxygen. All right? This is the single most important part of your circulatory system because all cells require oxygen. And they all need it constantly. All right? For a cell to do anything, it needs to produce energy. And to produce energy, it needs to burn sugars. And to burn sugars, it has to carry oxygen. And blood cells carry oxygen all the way through your body. They get it from the lungs, and they carry it everywhere else. O2 is carried by a molecule called hemoglobin. It is this globular proteins. And of course, we know that they have cell markers. These are the cells that have your blood types. So recall blood types. Everyone remember that lesson? They can have the A marker, the B marker, they could have the RH marker, and so you can have some combination of those three. So if you're AB positive, you'd have the A's, the B's, and the RHs. If you're O negative, you'd have no markers whatsoever. And the reason they're separated up in that kind of weird way is that the A and the B are controlled by one single gene, and then the RH is controlled by a different gene, right? So we have that. Okay. What's the next type of blood cell? So we've got our erythrocytes. And of course, now you're all screaming at the top of your lungs, the other type of blood cell everyone knows? That's right, leukocytes. And again, if you speak Latin, this will cause you no trouble because you'll know that leuka means white, and so leukocytes means white cells. Good. Sorry? Anthropos. Or is that Greek? Ooh, is that Greek? That might be Greek. Don't quote me. Yeah. Leukemia is cancer of the white blood cells. Absolutely. Which, as you can imagine, blood cancer, particularly dangerous, because one of the most dangerous things about cancer is, does it spread? And obviously, cancer of the blood itself is going to spread, right? So, yeah. A few things to know about white blood cells. First, they are much larger than erythrocytes. You don't see a lot of them in a slide, but if you do see them, you'll recognize them because they're much bigger. They travel through the blood, and they fight and destroy infections. They do this through what we call either endocytosis or phagocytosis, which is a mechanism by which they, well, we'll take a look. What does endo mean? Inside. Cytosis means, yeah, so they fight infection by inside cellism. So what the heck's that mean? Well, let's draw ourselves a little blood vessel. Oh, look, I'm a blood vessel. Look at me. I'm a capillary or a vein or an arterial, whatever. Okay, now, that's going too far over there. I have regrets. So let's imagine that we have a white blood cell. And I'm going to draw that white blood cell here. Look at me. Oh, see that? I changed colors. You son of a gun. Okay, so here's my leukocyte, my white blood cell. And then let's say we've got a nasty old virus. Oh, you mean old guy. There he is. Does anyone recognize this SOB? With these very specific, those are a corona-type virus. In particular, I'm going to imagine that this is SARS-CoV type 2. In other words, the thing that caused COVID-19. Boo. We hate it, right? Not a fan. So, assuming you've got your vaccine or you've been infected for a while, but ideally you've got your vaccine so your body knows what to be on the lookout for, your white blood cells have been taught that this is an invader. And if your white blood cells have been taught that it's an invader, then when it sees it, you know what it's going to do? It's going to attack it. And the way it attacks it is by actually engulfing it. So what it will do is it will bump into this bad boy, and then it will start to actually grow around it, all right, just like that. And then and see, other teachers, they might give you handouts that like already have diagrams on it, but honestly, then you'd just be missing out on all this incredible and amazing artwork that I do every day here, right? And that, hey, just chuckle at me. And so then, quiet you. How dare you? How dare you? I get it. You're jealous. You wish you were half the artist I was. Right? And it brings it inside the cell, and then the white blood cells just it's full of chemicals whose job is just to destroy stuff. So what then happens is that the thing that it's just absorbed is going to get just broken apart, just broken into pieces. Oh, look, we destroyed it. And then for safety, usually the white blood will kill itself. In something called apoptosis, programmed cell death. Basically, we've destroyed that thing, and then just to play it real safe. And there's different mechanisms. Sometimes it just destroys that and then puts out. But, so leukocytes seek out and destroy infection. And they move to injury sites to do so. They move to injury sites or where signaled by other cells. So you have other types of cells, some called memory cells. When you get a vaccine, those cells that start getting created in your blood that are literally just called memory cells, and their job is just to remember what what a virus looks like. So they just keep an imprint of that. And then they are constantly producing something called antibodies. And an antibody's job is to travel through your blood, and if it sees a virus like this, it latches onto it, and it starts releasing signals into the blood saying, hey, everybody, come here, we got one. And then your white blood cells show up en masse and just start taking viruses out. Does that make sense? Yeah, absolutely. So your memory cells are like a big wanted poster, and then like your antibodies are like Dog the Bounty Hunter, and then your white blood cells are like the police or like the military, and they all work together to say like, hey, see this guy? He's wanted. If you see him, let us know. And then your antibodies are like Dog Bounty Hunter, and they go, hey, SARS-CoV-2, we've had you before, either because you had COVID or because you got the vaccine, and they start screaming and releasing signals saying, hey, we got a SARS-CoV-2 here. And then all your white blood cells come and go, nom, 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 and eat them up and then destroy them. I assume that's the sound they make.
I would like to.
Right? I got nom, 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 nom. Sort of Cookie Monster adjacent. Do you know, I want to like SpongeBob. God, I find it so annoying. All the above. I love the idea of it, but I find it so grating.
I like how that used to be when I first started watching.
Good afternoon, everybody. Sorry for the interruption. I just wanted to make a quick announcement for the end of the day today. Recognizing that tomorrow is Halloween, and I know that many of you may want to dress up and come to school tomorrow. Just want to make a few quick reminders that students cannot wear masks or face coverings to school.
Remember when for 2 years we made you wear a mask every day? I'm just saying.
Similar, if you bring any type of costume that would have some type of fake weapon, knife, gun, anything along those lines, it will not be allowed to be at school. It will be confiscated. Again, think about the fact that we are at school and we're going to follow school rules, okay? We need to be able to know who you are, and your costume needs to be appropriate. Thank you. Have a good day.
The same stuff I've heard for like 11 years. I feel like we've gotten the memo.
I'd really like to beat up some.
Anyway,
Beat up some kids on Halloween.
I think you should partner up with somebody, and one of you should come as a white blood cell, and the other as a virus. And then at various points through the day, you could engulf and destroy the others and say, but I didn't use a weapon. And that makes it okay.
I have my shoes. My shoes are mellow.
Is it time for me to stop? Okay, let's get to work. Anyway. Okay, so what else does your blood do at injury sites? It does what? Yeah, very good. Very good. So, does anyone, that's okay, it was beautiful. It sounded lovely, actually. Does anyone know what the type of blood cell is that regulates that? Does anyone know? You've probably heard of them before, I bet. This one doesn't have a Latin name that I'm aware of. Very good, platelets. See?
Playlist. I was like, playlist?
Your blood has a playlist. The blood clotting playlist. No, platelets. These are super small cells, much smaller than red blood cells. I'm not going to write super small. Very small cells. They have an irregular shape to them. You know, just like last time, that's better. And at injury sites, they bind together to form a mesh, essentially. And eventually solid wound, solid patch, solid mass. And we call that action the clotting mechanism. I think clotting has got to be one of the grossest words in the English language. And the English have something called Devonshire cream. And yeah, Devonshire cream, and it's really good. It's like a thick like whatever. It's like cream based, but it's like thickened. It's like cream cheese, only it's much sweeter. They add a lot of like sugar to it. It's really good. It's really good. You can like spread it over bagels, pastries, and stuff. But you know what they call it? So in England, they call it Devonshire cream, and that sounds nice, right? And yeah, do you know what they call it in the United States and Canada? Clotted cream. And you're like, that is the most horrifying name for something I can imagine. Yeah, horrible, right? So platelets clot, and this prevents blood loss until new tissues form. So, yeah. Tomorrow, I'm going to try to get my hands on some fake blood that we can spin down because we can't spin down real blood for safety reasons. That's fair. I respect that. Sorry? You're not allowed to volunteer. But if you look at that blood composition, if we were to take blood and put it in a centrifuge, does anyone know what a centrifuge is? I've got one in the back. Yeah, it just spins. And when you put something on a side and just spin it like crazy, fast enough, long enough, the heavy stuff is going to push its way to the bottom, and the light stuff will make itself to the top. We use the centrifuge to separate things out by weight. Does that make sense? So we can separate blood out by weight. As it turns out, the cells are denser than the plasma itself. So if we were to take a little, I'm going to do my best to draw an Eppendorf, a little epi.
Wait, is that how they do plasma donation? They just take your blood and then they...
Yeah, they spin it down. That's right. Okay, so we have these little containers here. And if we filled that with a sample of my blood, like this, we said, okay, there's a sample of my blood. Okay, I'm going to color in the lines, guys. Do you have faith in me?
No. Oh, okay.
Look at how beautiful it is. You're welcome. It's really good, right? I get it.
Sure.
Quiet. It's very hard to do with this because the tip of the pen, if you're using the highlighter feature, like the actual highlighter goes like that. I wish it would like line to the bottom of this, actually. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So at least then you would know where the edge is.
Chiseled up.
Anyway, yeah, I get it. So anyway, so there we go. So if we take that and we put it into a centrifuge. I'm going to draw my centrifuge. Oh, good. So let's, there it is. There's the top of it. Okay, top of my centrifuge. And it's got a front. And on the front, mine has a start button and a dial for how long you want it to go for. That kind of looks like that. And it's got a little flashy red light that blinks to tell you it's on. Because the fact that it's spinning at extremely high speeds and making loud noise wouldn't tell you. So you got to have a red light to tell you it's on. You know, in the last 10 years, electronics have started including the off light. You have this stupid thing. This projector does that, where when you turn it off, there's a light. And it's like, sorry, if I didn't have the light to tell me it wasn't on, would I not know that my projector wasn't on? Would I just forget it? Yeah, like when did we get so stupid that we needed a light to tell us that our electronics weren't working at the moment? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's weird, right? Anyway.
It's been around for a while, though.
Well.
Like a lot of TVs have it. Like my TV's older and it still has like that weird red light.
Mine has it too. Mine's like 15 years old.
Oh, 15 years old. Listen,
Mine's a
when I was first married, my TV was from the 70s. It was one of those big like wood console ones. Love that thing. So if we take this and we put it in here, and there it is, and then the whole point of a centrifuge is it takes this thing and it just spins it around real good, real fast. This is called a centrifuge. And we use centrifuges to spin down all kinds of things. But then we take that, now when we take it out of the centrifuge, it's going to look different. And our tube's going to be here. And now the red blood cells will have collected at the bottom, like that, and we'll be able to see them. But then above the red blood cells, you'll have a slight layer of leukocytes that we'll see like here. Whoa. And then above that, you'll have all of the plasma. And the platelets are functionally, they're so rare that you can't really see them. So we'll have the plasma. What do we call white blood cells again? Very good. Leukocytes. And what do we call red blood cells again?
Erythrocytes.
Very good. What's that?
Oh, she said the memory right now. I said, don't say that.
Now, you guys very much impressed me with your ability to remember stuff. Again, biology has a big volume of information. You guys have handled it very well. Math is different. Math is a skill set that's really challenging, right? Like, but people are different, right? Some people find that, and some people find this very difficult, and math comes very naturally to them. Everyone's got a different brain, and we should celebrate that, right? Some people are good at basketball. Some people are good at watching basketball. And that's fine. No, I'm serious. There's nothing wrong with either, though. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like, I love music, but I'm not a natural musician, and that's okay. It also means you shouldn't do things that you find difficult. I'm not good at basketball, but I still like playing basketball, right? And I'm not much of a musician, but I like playing music, so I do it, right? Like, and you don't have to be the best at something to do it. It's okay to be mediocre at things. This is my hot take. Most people are mediocre at most things, and that's cool. And it's also okay to be really good at something. So if there's something you are really good at and you love doing it, you should do it. But it's also, like, I am very much a person who's not very good at anything. I'm pretty good at a bunch of stuff. I am passable at a bunch more stuff. And there's not really anything I'm great at. And that's fine, I think. At least that's what I tell myself at night because I'm crying. And sobbing uncontrollably. No, like, joking aside, like, I think we're so trained to think like everyone has to have some like super passion that they're super great at. Not everyone does. Like, it's okay to just sort of be, yeah, it's perfectly okay to be average. No, you don't have to be average. But like,
Force yourself not to be like, I'm not good at basketball. So I'm on the basketball team though. Like,
I just ignore it and I don't do it.
interesting.
I feel like you kind of like when you're in your comfort, you stick with what's more comfortable. But as I've been like growing, I used to be like that. But the more I like go and try out new stuff, it's like I kind of have to.
Oh, see, I'm just stubborn.
Because yeah, honestly, trying out new stuff, it's a neat feeling. Like, I always love, every few years I take a new course at Niagara College, and I always just pick something I haven't taken before. A few years ago I took a computer animation class. It was really neat. I took a 3D design class. I struggle with art, but I thought kind of mixing it with computers would help me a bit. I really enjoyed it. I took an Italian class. I really like that. Next, I want to actually study Latin. I thought that'd be fun. And I do well in school. I'm better at that than if I just study something on my own, because it helps me if somebody's like marking something. My ego kicks in, and if somebody's going to write on a piece of paper that I'm good or bad at something, I want them to write that I'm good, so my ego kicks in and I try harder. You know? Like,
Yes. I don't know, something about seeing that like 10 out of 10.
Right? It feels good. It feels good. It's affirmation,
Better
right?
than
It's like,
everyone.
I was surprised last year actually with myself. I got a 17 science overall.
nice.
I was surprised. I've never got higher than 60.
I love it.
I think I already have my academic because I got an honors in grade 8 and a French award, and as soon as I got into high school just
That's
high
fine.
schooled me.
That's fine. Now you get that out of the way. You just wait. By next year, you're going to be back on top.
Oh, I hope so.
Oh, I'm not even. You are not what I worry about. You're going to do great. Seriously, you're going to do great. And like, you get out of the way. Everyone crashes and burns at some point. So the best case scenario is to do that in like grade 8, grade 9. Honestly. No, I'm serious. No, but honestly, because everyone does. For me, it was second year university, and now I'm paying $9,000 a year to crash and burn. That's not a good deal. Crash and burn when it's free. That's the time to do it, right? Like, but honestly, everyone falls apart academically at some point. You stick with it, and yeah, right? It's fine. It's good for you. You grow. It's important at some point to learn in life that you also can fail, right? That sometimes you'll succeed and sometimes you're going to not succeed, and that like you survive both those events. You survived. You thrived. Now you're here on the other side, right?
High school, getting into high school is actually easy. I noticed. What do you mean getting to high school? In my country, getting to high school is like university. You apply, if your marks aren't good enough, they won't take you.
Yeah, you guys just take for granted that you live in a country with free education all the way up to grade 12. Less than a quarter of the world's population lives in places where that's true, right? Like our education system, it has its ebbs and flows. Those things I'm frustrated with about it right now. But we pretty consistently, for math, science, and literacy, rank in the top 15 countries in the world, and you get that for free. Like, that's not something to take for granted. And I think we do a lot of taking it for granted, which fair enough, right? You don't know anything different. But, there's people in the world who just simply do not have the money, and so they don't get to be educated. And that's a sad state of affairs. Yeah.
I feel like from a younger age, like we should be taught to be more grateful for stuff like that.
I think so.
Because I feel like it's so like natural in our heads living here. Like, we get up, we have to go to school every day, and like we really don't.
But it's not just, I agree, and it's not just people your age, because I hear people my age all the time go like, "Ooh, I pay taxes, I pay too much in taxes." And so I was like, "You pay too much in tax? Are you kidding me? Like, how'd you get here today to bitch about your tax? Oh, you drove on a road? Did you pave it yourself? Did you get out there and dig it? And like, oh no, you didn't? Do you have any idea how much it costs to build a road? Like East Main Street, if you had to build it from scratch, would cost like $20 million. Roads are expensive. Where'd you come to complain about this? Oh, school, the place where you get a free education? Or like, what did you do last time you got sick? Oh, you went to the hospital, you went to your doctor, where for free, somebody who's taken years and years and years of education to become an expert at like cutting open bodies and like knowing how things work. Oh, they just fixed you for free. Oh, you pay too much in taxes. It's wild to me. I get so offended by that, where I think like, yeah, we pay taxes. Like that's the country we live in. And by the way, compared to 20 years ago, we pay much lower taxes than we did. Do you know what the top tax bracket was in the United States of America in 1950? 100%. After $1.5 million, every single dime you made beyond that went to the government in taxes because they had to pay for what they had just done, which was fight a war. It was 98% into the 60s, right? Like, there's an understanding that if you want to live in a society that has bridges and roads and airports and doctors and teachers that are all paid for, and that if you're poor but you need a lawyer, they will pay for a lawyer, right? Like all these things cost money. And so, yeah, when people are like, oh, I pay too much in taxes, like go to a place that doesn't pay taxes. You know what I mean? There's lots of them in the world. Go there, see how you like it. I don't know. And you might, like for the record, like, yeah, that's an option. Like there's different ways to do things. But I, for one, like the idea that, yeah, do they take 30% of every paycheck I get?
Yeah.
Yeah, they do. Do I love not having that money? I guess not. Though, honestly, what would I do with it? Buy more takeout? Be even less healthy? But in the meantime, like, I know that, like, when I was 23, my wife got cancer. And, like, if we had lived in a place where you didn't have health care, we probably would have had to drop out of school. Probably would have had to sell my house, but we didn't. We pushed through it. So, like, right?
And it's like my current medication. My bills are $1,200 a month.
Right.
I don't pay for that.
No, exactly, right? And like, think about somebody with diabetes. Do you know what people are paying for insulin in the United States? Up until the Biden administration just passed a cap at $50 a month, some people were paying $500 a month for insulin. Can you imagine? $500 a month.
And you have to take it.
It's so lucky because in my country, we don't go to the hospital unless it's life-threatening.
Yeah.
You
get a bill.
Everything.
Yeah.
Every single thing, and it's expensive.
Yeah.
So it's like, unless it's life-threatening, we don't go out.
And the thing of it is, how many things get missed that actually were life-threatening because you didn't know, right? Versus going to the doctor regularly versus
I
that.
have a cousin who actually passed away this year because they didn't even know like her sickness was that bad because they didn't go to the hospital for it because it's like she just had like headaches and
Like that's horrifying. Like you hear about that and you just think like that's just so heartbreaking.
My dad passed away because they didn't know what was going on with him. So then when they figured out after they did the autopsy on him that he had like a major heart issue, and that's what brought on the heart attack after saying he just had pneumonia 3 times.
Yeah.
That's made me lose a lot of trust in doctors.
There's an issue with this over-prescribing medication for older people.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm sure, like, everything's still run by people, and people make mistakes, right?
Yeah.
Like people are fallible, and doctors are people too. And in terms of over-prescribing, they're cautious. They don't want what Kiki just described, which is, oh, we should have done something, but we didn't. And so sometimes they go the other way, where they really are doing too much, and the truth is that probably they should have done less. But you know what I mean? Like,
There's
And you cannot stress how complicated the human body is. Like, we're going to start dipping into that a little bit in this unit, but like, she complicated. It's a big old
It's like the,
complicated system.
It's like I saw one woman had an autopsy and they didn't know how she died, and they didn't know until she got cut open in the autopsy and she had severe endometriosis.
Oh my gosh, like that's so scary,
I know,
right?
because they didn't.